Okay, welcome to the September 2021 meeting of the Finance Committee. It's being held from a number of occasions today, pursuant, I guess, to the recently enacted Zoom law, whatever you want to call it. Some folks are by way of Zoom, some folks are in Albany, some folks like us are in New York City. But thanks to the tech staff for pulling this off. First up on the agenda is the adoption of the meeting minutes from the July meeting of the Finance Committee. Can I please get a motion to approve those meeting minutes? Hello, Trace, how are you? Second, thank you very much. All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Aye. That motion carries. Thank you very much. I think, Sarah, maybe I jumped ahead. I think you have to do some type of intro or something.
Well, you actually summarized it. I was just going to let everyone know that there is legislation that the governor signed into law on September 2nd that is very similar to the executive order. It does allow board members to fully participate from remote locations that are not open to the public. So that's the way, that is permitted by the new law that does sunset on January 15th. And you provided a good summary of that. So feel free to continue, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Maybe they'll adopt my terminology, the Zoom law. Okay, well, first up on the agenda is a sales tax / PID offering. I believe Matt is presenting that. Do I have that right?
Yes, good morning.
Hello, Matt. Take us away. Thank you.
Thank you. So the Finance Committee is being asked to recommend to the board the issuance of multiple series of tax exempt and or taxable fixed and or variable rate bonds issued at one or more times with a term of 21 years in an amount not to exceed $850 million under either the sales tax revenue bond program and or the personal income tax revenue bond program. However, at this time, the current plan is to issue under the personal income tax program, otherwise known as the PIT program. The proposed financing will refund certain variable rate state supported debt, thereby eliminating the state's variable rate debt portfolio with DASNY. The swaps associated with these variable rate bonds will be terminated, and any costs with terminating the swaps will be financed as part of the transaction. With these swaps, DASNY pays a fixed rate of interest to the swap counterparty and receives a variable rate of interest from the swap counterparty. And this is used to pay the variable rate interest on the bonds. And I want to highlight a few things. Back when these swaps were entered into, the synthetic fixed rate of interest on the swaps was lower than the traditional fixed rate. Again, at the time these swaps were entered into, and these were back in 2003 and 2005. The current interest rate environment which we're in, and the fact that these loans have been amortizing for some time, enables the state to issue fixed rate bonds to refund the underlying variable rate bonds and terminate the swaps. And the savings associated with the proposed refunding of these variable rate bonds is expected to approximate the cost of issuance and the costs associated with terminating the swaps. The variable rate bonds to be expected to be refunded include bonds issued for mental health services in 2003, for CUNY in 2008, and a sales tax, personal income tax, and a state personal income tax bond issue in 2019. In addition, the current plan of finance also includes the refunding of all or a portion of DASNY's state personal income tax revenue bonds, Series 2011E and Series 2011G. And these 2011 bonds are more of the plain vanilla fixed rate refundings, and this is where the bulk of the savings are. So to sum it up, we are seeking authorization for the bonds to be issued for the following purposes: the refunding of all or portion of certain bonds issued under various state-supported debt programs, including but not limited to DASNY's Mental Health Services Facilities Improvement Revenue Bonds, Series 2003D-2E, Series 2003D-2F, and Series 2003D-2H. DASNY City University System Consolidated Fifth General Resolution Revenue Bonds, Series 2008C and Series 2008D. DASNY State Personal Income Tax Revenue Refunding Bonds, Series 2019C, and all corresponding swap termination fees related to these aforementioned bonds, and the refunding of all or portion of DASNY State Personal Income Tax Revenue Bonds, Series 2011E and Series 2011G. For security, under the Sales Tax Revenue Bond Program, the security includes semi-annual payments to be made pursuant to the financing agreement between DASNY and the Division of the Budget, and a set aside of 2 cents or 50% of the state's 4% sales tax pursuant to statute and deposited in the Sales Tax Revenue Bond Fund. And we had mentioned this in a prior presentation, but an additional 1 cent for a total of 2 cents is now available to be dedicated since the obligations of the Local Government Assistance Corporation were satisfied on April 1st of 2021. Under security for the Personal Income Tax Revenue Bond Program, these are secured by semi-annual payments to be made pursuant to the financing agreement, again, between DASNY and the Division of the Budget. Also, 50% of the receipts from the New York State Personal Income Tax and an employer compensation expense tax, with 50% of such receipts also deposited in the Revenue Bond Tax Fund. In addition, this year's budget provides that 50% of the receipts from the imposition of the pass-through entity tax pursuant to Article 24A of the tax law shall be deposited in the Revenue Bond Tax Fund. This is expected to be revenue neutral to the state. However, PIT receipts would decrease to the extent that qualifying entities elected to pay this tax. So to hold the Revenue Bond Tax Fund harmless and to maintain comparable security, 50% of the receipts of this tax would also be deposited in the RBTF, or Revenue Bond Tax Fund. The expected ratings of either program are AA2, AA+, and AA+. And to conclude, for this fiscal year ending March 31st, 2022, the debt service coverage on all outstanding sales tax bonds is projected to be 5.6 times total debt service, and the debt service coverage on all outstanding state personal income tax bonds is projected to be 6.4 times total debt service. This is an improvement from the projected coverage that was presented in May, when at the time the projection looked to have sales tax covered by 5.1 times and a coverage ratio of 5.6 times for state personal income tax bonds. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation.
Thanks very much, Matt, for the thorough presentation. Questions from either any of the Finance Committee members or anybody else from the board who happens to be either in Albany or Buffalo or by way of Zoom or anything? Feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think Tracy has a, is that you, Tracy?
Yeah, just confirming, there's no extension of maturity in the aggregate, right? Is what I read.
In the aggregate within the fiscal year of the bonds to be refunded.
And the savings.
I just asked about the extension of maturity, and I think
It will fall within the fiscal year of the bonds.
Of the bonds, yeah. Yep. And there is present value savings associated. So this is really an economic.
Correct.
Refinancing.
And those savings will be taken mostly by the end of 2027, right?
Yeah, I just want to check. That is correct. Correct.
So we're basically saving on interest payments at the end of the day.
Yep. Makes sense.
It's a good thing. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Anybody else?
I think it also exits the state from variable debt.
Does that?
That's correct. From the states, from DASNY's state.
Right.
I just want to make the comment, although it doesn't affect your decision on this, eliminating these swaps will eliminate the administrative burden of the swaps on staff. So that will certainly be a benefit to DASNY by having the swaps off the books. Again, not for your decision, but it does help us in our perspective.
I still miss getting those big packets of the swap information, and no one really could ever understand. I don't. Anyway, okay. If there's no other comments or concerns or questions, I'll ask the committee members to make a motion to recommend approval of this offering at today's full board meeting, which will be held at about 10:30 or so today.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. We will we'll recommend that that be approved at today's full board meeting. Thank you very much. Next up, I believe, is the Fordham University offering. Dave is taking that one. Thank you, Dave. Please.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, David.
The Finance Committee is being asked to recommend to the full board one or more series of tax exempt and or taxable fixed and or variable rate bonds at an amount not to exceed 205 million with maturities not to exceed 31 years on behalf of Fordham University. The majority of the proceeds from this issuance will be used for refunding purposes, with Fordham looking to refund DASNY Series 2012, 2014, and 2016 A bonds, all totaling about 182 million. The Series 2012 bonds are callable in July of next year. Therefore, the university intends to either advance refund the Series 2012 bonds with taxable bonds or utilize a forward delivery of tax exempt bonds, whereby the bonds are priced as early as October of this year and then close on or after April 2nd of 2022, when the issuance would qualify as a current refunding. As far as the 2014 bonds, these are callable in July of 2024, and the university intends to advance refund these bonds with taxable bonds. As far as the 2016 A bonds, they have a current par amount outstanding of about 131.7 million. It's anticipated that the university will refund about 32 million of these Series 2016 A step coupon bonds, which are maturing in July of 2038. These step coupon bonds are currently callable. The remainder of the 2016 A bonds are not callable until July of 2026. So while we've included the full amount in this authorization, because there are savings, the university may opt to not refund the full amount of those bonds. In addition to the refunding, bond proceeds may also be used to finance a portion of costs associated with the renovation and expansion of the university's campus center located on the Rose Hill campus in the Bronx, as well as certain repair, renovation, or replacement projects located on the university's campuses. That portion would total approximately 15 million. The university financed a major portion of the student center back in 2020 through a DASNY bond issuance. Fordham has a rating of A2 with a stable outlook from Moody's, as well as an A rating from S&P, also with a stable outlook. So as in recent Fordham transactions, it's anticipated that the loan agreement will be a general unsecured obligation of the university. I'll just touch on a few financial highlights of the university. Demand for the university's program has increased in each of the last 5 years. Applications totaled just under 48,000 for the fall of 2020, which held steady from 2019 despite disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The university reported 14,726 FTEs for the fall of 2020, which was down from the 5-year high of 15,400 in the fall of 2019. In speaking with management last week, the final numbers for fall of 2021 are not yet available, but it looks like freshman enrollment reached a record high of fall of 2021. So those numbers have rebounded from fall of 2020. Fordham does rely on tuition and fee revenue. For fiscal year 2020, tuition and fees accounted for 74% of total revenue, while auxiliary revenue represented an additional 10%. Operating margins have been positive in each of the last 5 years, averaging 11.7 million. And that includes fiscal year 2020, where the university's operations were negatively impacted by the pandemic and the shift to the remote learning, where the margin was still positive at 5.5 million. Lastly, and most importantly, this transaction is being done for savings. Assuming current market conditions, a total net present value savings in the range of 19.8 million, or 12.3% of the refunded bonds is expected from the refunding of the Series 2012, 2014, and 2016 A bonds. Mr. Chairman.
you very much. Question or concern? By the way, I see Janice. I'm sorry, Janice, I didn't recognize you in the corner over there. So any questions or concerns from my fellow board committee members and board members as well?
I didn't have any, Mr. Chairman. Tracy?
You know, Fordham has been a long-term client of DASNY, an excellent client, a well-respected institution, certainly an important part of New York City. So I certainly personally welcome their offering, and I don't think I can recommend approval. I think I need somebody else to make that
I
motion.
think you do. So moved, sir.
Thank you. Second, thank you. All in favor on the committee? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
Aye.
much. Unopposed, so that motion carries, and so that will be recommended later on today. And I think Portia, in regard to the urban health plan offering that we preliminarily approved, has a few comments and I guess updates.
Thank you very much, Jerry. In addition to the two financings which the committee reviewed this morning, I did want to say a few words about the urban health plan financing, which will be considered by the board for adoption of documents later this morning. Staff presented urban health plan to the committee and the board in November. As you will recall, this is a private placement transaction to Preston Hollow, a qualified institutional buyer, a QUIB, in an amount not to exceed $70 million to fund the construction of a federally qualified health center extension clinic in the Bronx. I wanted to just note a few things. The project has been downsized in its scope, and DOH has issued an amended certificate of need. In light of the ongoing pandemic, we wanted to let you know that Urban Health Plan's payer mix and market share remains the same. With regard to its financials, the balance sheet was relatively stable from 2019 to 2020, although the income statement does show a loss as a result of revenues that were down as a result of COVID. You're going to hear more about this from Gerard at the board meeting, but I did want to just recap that for the finance committee before you hear more from Gerard. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Portia. Portia, is there anything in regard to the brownfield there? You know, that was sort of, I think, a part of their, their development plan. Has that sort of advanced through DEC? Do we know?
I believe so, Jerry. Gerard will address that point at the board meeting. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Portia, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
My
Any
pleasure. Thank
questions
you.
or any questions or anything that we can? Hearing none. I don't think I can. Okay, so I think that concludes the agenda, unless anyone has any questions or.
Executive session.
Oh, okay, so
We don't have the language for it.
right, we're gonna go into
Thank you.
executive. Can I get a motion to go in executive session to discuss the financial legal issues relating to a certain
To
Entity.
firms, companies, entities, whatever.
thank you.
So moved.
Thank you very much. I'll second that. Thank you very much. So we're gonna go, I don't know how we do that technically. For you fine folks in Zoom land, I guess Sarah will have to sort of explain what. Thank you very much, Sarah. So we are coming out of executive session where no action was taken. So unless there's any other matters for this finance committee for September, I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you very much, Mr. Connie. Thank you very much. Whoever else might have seconded that. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None.
They may have frozen.
Yeah, I think.
We are.
We need somebody to.
We have a quorum. No, we have two. Two or four. Can I adjourn with two?
You can, but I think they're frozen.
They're frozen.
There.
Not frozen. I
Frozen
support it.
again.
Frozen, we're good.
Okay,
Back.
thank you.
All right, everybody's back.
Okay, so that motion then carries, and so therefore finance is now adjourned. So thank you all very much. And we'll see you in a few minutes at the full board
We
meeting.
have a 15-minute break and we'll start the board meeting at 10:30.
Okay.
Are we using the same link?
Yes, you can stay on if you'd like to.